Hello, Derek Abella here with AbellaBees.com. Wanted to talk to you today about 10 reasons bees are like people. And I like to say this all the time with clients because a lot of people don't realize how similar we really are to the bees. Anyways, let's go ahead and get started. Number one, bees like to go to sleep at night. A lot of people don't understand this. That is part of the reason why you find a lot of dead bees in the morning especially underneath lights and things like that near your house. So if you leave the lights on all night outside the house, you'll tend to find dead bees, especially if they're living there or near your house, or if there's a beekeeper nearby or something like that. You'll actually find a bunch of dead bees laying all around those lights because they like to go to sleep at night. And if there's lights left on, some of those bees are actually attracted to the warmth of the light, obviously, and they're also attracted to light at night. A few of them will fly in and they'll just, like normal bugs, they'll just die. So that's number one. Number two, they like a constant equilibrium and a constant temperature, which people don't realize. Bees actually have this really amazing ability to maintain their temperature in the hive, no matter whether it's hot outside or whether it's cold, depending on the time of year. They'll actually maintain the temperature at a pretty constant, right around in the 90s. It fluctuates a little bit here and there, but for the most part, that's kind of their optimal temperature. And there's a few reasons. Obviously, there's larvae that are growing inside. The queen's laying all those larvae everywhere, and then also the honeycomb and everything else needs to be at a constant temperature. Number three, for the most part, they tend to be pretty friendly, and that's how I find people tend to be as well. They tend to be friendly. You hear about the occasional. You usually don't hear about bees until someone's getting killed or horses are getting killed, things like that. People are getting stung. But for the most part, they tend to be pretty friendly, and you'll probably experience that when you see bees out in nature. Number four, they like to keep themselves. So bees, for the most part, tend to keep themselves. You'll just usually see them when they're pollinating flowers, and then they do their business, and they go straight back to their hive. So whether they're getting water or whether they're pollinating, so you tend to find them in swimming pools, especially in the summertime, they tend to get what they're getting and then leave and go straight back to their hive. So tend to keep themselves and not really bother people too much. Where people tend to get a problem with one or two bees is they have some sort of sugary, drink or something out that the bees are attracted to, or obviously honey. If you're having a barbecue or something like that, they're attracted to those smells, and obviously those types of foods as well. Or if you're in their flight path, so they're flying somewhere, they're on their way, and you happen to be in their flight path, that's where they'll get in your hair and seem pretty crazy. They're not always just trying to come at you for no reason. So, number five, multiple genetic variations, and this is really interesting. I bring this up because you basically have all these different types of species of bees, and then everything within that genetic pool in between. So there are specific strains you can breed for, and that's where you hear of like the Italian bee, the Africanized bee, things like that. There's obviously certain breeds you can select for, but for the most part, there's a wide range, just like dogs, in a way, of just different genetic variation. And people are the same way. Again, you have all kinds of different genes in your different populations of people. Same thing with bees. So, and then obviously that leads to number six, they don't all look the same. So with that variation, you'll get the slight differences in looks. Some people will get confused by it. And, basically some people will also try to turn around and say, oh, you can definitely tell this bee is this particular type of bee being very, very aggressive or whatever. So they look this way, which is really not the case. That's kind of the other end of the spectrum. People try to pinpoint how they look to their behavior, which is not really the case. So you'll tend to find, everyone thinks of the normal yellow and black bee, and then you have all these different variations in their color as far as they stay that type of color, but you'll see a thicker or different shades of that yellow or different shades of that black. And they may even look like they have a fully black, abdomen or thorax or different parts of their body, and that'll vary in the size of the different colors that they have. But for the most part, they're all about that, yellow and black coloring with the stripes and everything. So, number seven, food and water is essential to their survival. So this seems like a no-brainer. But what beekeepers especially don't realize is that you need to have all these things readily available for them to stick around. They might just leave if they don't have the food and water necessary. Also, the types of food, I like to say this, as far as people are concerned, you tend to be able to tie your food to your health, as well as what you're drinking, what you're putting into your body tends to be directly tied to how healthy you are. It's the same thing with bees. So they need a healthy diet. They also need healthy water source and things like that as well. So all of these things are essential to keep the beehive functioning at their optimal, just like people. And number 8, so basically what I want to say about number 8 is bees are like people in the fact that when there's a fire, first few things you're going to think of is obviously how do I get out of here, and also what do I need to grab on my way out. So save babies, you know what I mean, save your valuables, things like that are most important. Obviously if it's time, you have enough time to do these things to get out. That's typically what people think of when there's a fire. So, and I want to say this to you because not many people realize this, with a smoker, what you're essentially doing is creating a fire scenario. So the smoke is coming in, flooding in, and everything starts going into, hey, it's time to put this fire out, also save the babies, suck up the honey if we need to get out of here, and relocate our entire house. So that's essentially what they do. When you start smoking bees, most people don't realize that they tend to think, oh, it just calms them down. Well, not really. It actually kind of excites them in a way that they'll start breaking open the capped honey and sucking it up. Other bees will also start, very, very quickly fanning their wings and flying in and out of the hive to create this suction to get that smoke out of there. And they'll try and locate obviously where the fire's at to put it out. But usually when you're smoking, they'll just turn around and try and push that smoke right back out or suck it out another spot. So essentially that's what happens with a fire. So number 9, this kind of is simple. It's all about the queen. So I like to say, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. So this is pretty easy to understand as far as bees are concerned. Number 10, and this is the last one. So this kind of is an easy way to understand why a lot of stings and things like that happen to people and why people get hurt, is especially when you hear about these guys who are like landscapers and they're hanging out and they're just taking care of their work, and all of a sudden they get stung or possibly even killed, is because bees like to protect their home just like people. So if someone were coming over to your house and started breaking into the house, your typical instinct, at least most, these are just generalizations, but most people would be inclined to protect their home and not to just let people break in and just do whatever they want. So that being said, the bees are the same way. You have specific guard bees that are going to guard the hive, especially the entrance, from other robber bees and obviously other critters and different things, especially, if someone's trying to break into their home, such as in a bee removal, which is why that's specifically what we specialize in, is doing bee removals. So when we do that, that's when you're going to see a lot of bees flooding out to start trying to protect the hive. So you definitely want to have someone like us who knows what we're doing. You don't want to call an exterminator. It's never needed. So you've probably heard my other videos. Extermination is just not something that's needed, and it shouldn't even be an option. So saving all the bees is definitely something that should be done. As I mentioned earlier, in these 10 reasons why bees are like people, is because one of them is the genetic variation, and you don't need to just go around exterminating every single bee out there. And even if you think they're mean, or even if the exterminator who shows up, or the beekeeper, quote unquote, who shows up and says they're mean and says they're quote unquote Africanized, again, go through all these reasons again and understand that's not really something you can just pinpoint and say, yes, these bees are that way. Obviously you can send them to a lab to get them genetically tested, but again, you can't just generally say all bees are bad or things like that, or say these particular bees are bad without technically getting them genetically tested to even know. So that all being said, this was just a fun, quick little video. I wanted to talk about how bees are like people. Please hit subscribe and check us out at abellabees.com. All right, take care.